All right. All right, here we go. It's a beautiful day in Milwaukee. It's April 7th. Um, it's been a little bit since I've been in front of the group. Took a little spring break with the kids. And for those that celebrated Easter or participate in celebrating in Easter, I hope you had an excellent Easter Sunday. And for those that were traveling for spring break, hope you had an excellent spring break. You got home safely. And for those that are on spring break this week, because there is a crew on spring break this week, hope for those that are traveling, you have an excellent trip. All right, so today I'm going to jump into kind of the foresight of what we're going to talk about is a couple things. I'm going to zoom out to zoom in. And what do I mean by that is like there's a lot going on in the world, and I'm getting a lot of questions of like, what does this mean for the real estate market, and how do I articulate this to my clients? I'll talk about what happens during times of geopolitical conflict and how does it impact appreciation or depreciation of values. As oil spikes, what happens with mortgage rates? And then I did a full recap for you on Q1 insights where I blended January, February, and March and compared them January and February, March of 2026 versus 2025 versus 2024 versus 2023. So you can understand where we are and where I think we're headed. Make sense? Also, I will tell you, be weary of paying attention to the national headlines. I say this often, and I'm saying this as it relates to the housing industry because one of the things I will talk about is depending where you are in the US, the housing industry is in divergent markets. Okay, I'll explain what that means, but it's things that you need to understand in order to be able to articulate to your clients to help either alleviate fears and anxiety about what's going on in the market so that you can be the economist of choice and allow people to have a clear head in order to take action. Make sense? Beautiful. So jumping into it, mission, vision, values, beliefs, and perspectives. One of the things we want to highlight right away up front is lives worth living, experiences worth giving, and legacies worth leaving. And the reason why I share that with you is one of the things that we are very keen in and focusing on is how do we enrich our communities and what it is that we do of where we live, work, and play. And one of the ways that we do that in terms of how do we enrich our communities is through Red Day, which is coming up on May 14th, 2026. It's where we, quite frankly, shut down all of the offices during the height of the spring market, and we participate in a day of giving where you live. In my opinion, I'll be honest with you, I think it's one of the greatest gifts that you can do because the gift of the giver is the joy you get in return, and the joy that you receive is how you give to your community. We've selected this year a group of 5 organizations that touch a wide variety of people, geographies, scope of work, from Bridge to Brighter, which is a transitionary home for students who are in foster care, and how once they age out of the foster care system, Bridge to Brighter helps them do that. We have a group that's actually already has a wait list for Souls for Jesus, Emmanuel MKE, Camp Whitcomb Mason, which is a part of the Boys and Girls Club, and then Courage MKE. So we have 5 incredible organizations that we're participating with this year. And I know as of a week ago when we launched this to the group in terms of registrations, usually like when we launch something 2 months out, it'll like we'll trickle in with registrations, and then it usually fills up like 2 weeks out, and then it really fills up a week out because people aren't paying attention. I have to say from a place of gratitude, to have 134 of you raise your hand in the first week of registration is amazing. I oftentimes get from people of like, oh, I don't know how I have the time. Here's the thing I'll tell you is if you make the time, the reward you will receive in return is one of the greatest returns on your investment of time because of how you can make an impact in your community. So save the date for May 14th. Now, with that, I'm flipping it over to Linz. Linz, what do these guys need to know around tech and marketing updates? Linz? Maybe Linz is stuck in the ethers. Lindsay Vranick? No? All right. We'll come back to Linz when she jumps on. All right. With that, I'm going to jump over to Steph for compliance. Steph, what do you got for DocuSign, email addresses, and MLS forms?
Hi, good morning, guys. Yes, super quick update this morning, nothing too heavy. There is a new delayed MLS form. Yes, again, it was just updated in January, but we've got a new update, new change. So really the only change, again, I got to actually consult my notes here. We need to get broker authorization for the final syndication into the third-party websites for coming soons, which we will get with this new partnership with Zillow, of course. So just make sure that you guys are using that and make sure you've got the updated form when you are having your seller clients sign it. So next slide, Charlie. Okay, and then this came up a bunch over the past couple weeks in terms of issues with our DocuSign signature blocks, and not so much issues with the tech itself, just people not realizing, agents not understanding that we need to check the required fields when we are using these forms that put in the auto signature blocks. So just as a reminder, you can see here on the left-hand side, if the outline box is there, a field, that signature field has been dropped in automatically, but we need to make it required for the client by, and if you can see here on the right-hand side, checking that required field box to make sure that the client is clicking on it for their signature. So if it's outlined again, it's not going to be a required field, so we need to make sure we're checking that box on the right-hand side. And then next slide, Charlie. Another reminder with this. DocuSign also puts in the fields automatically for, and this is just an example with an amendment, it'll automatically drop those initial fields at the base there. So if your intent is not to have the client reject an amendment, for example, you need to delete those fields from the form altogether. So just make sure that you're double checking once you are setting up these signatures using DocuSign. So, all right, and then email delivery. So quick reminder on this, make sure that we're always including a delivery email address on every contract and needing one. So that's with our agency agreements, our buyer agency agreement, listing contracts. This is the only valid form of delivery between clients and the firm, and then between the firms when we're using an offer to purchase. So make sure on the email address for the buyer, seller, and the firm are all indicated on those lines. Okay, and that is it.
Sweet. Thanks, Lieutenant Steph. And we're going to have to find a new chief now that Joni has officially, as of April 1, retired. But so just to kind of put a bow on that, but Steph, thank you for the compliance update. And now I got word Lindsay Vranick is coming in live. Linz, we'll go back to Steph at Tech and Marketing. What do these guys need to be paying attention to?
All right, Charlie, you can hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, I've got a fun one for you guys today. So the bracket is set and we are live with round one of Battle of the Vibes. So we're bringing back our vibe checks that we used to do on our Instagram channel. And you guys are the stars, our agents are the stars. And so we've got some really exciting videos that we are posting currently on our Instagram stories. So round one, we have Mary Beth Milkey against Annie Werner and Katie Rinka. And then we have Randy Lee against Bianca Reddick. So check out our Instagram stories, which are live right now, to vote on the best battle. Who has the best vibe? So here's just a little sneak peek into what you're going to see on our Instagram stories. So again, we've got Mary Beth, we've got Annie and Katie and Randy and Bianca. So all four of those videos are posted on our KW Realty MKE Instagram page. So check out our stories. You're going to see a poll where you can vote for who has the best vibes. So we're going to be running this through the beginning of June. So again, you'll see those on Instagram. You'll place your vote, and then voting is going to last 24 hours. So voting will end at around 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, and then the winners will be announced on our Instagram on Friday of each week. So we're going to have all new videos the next coming weeks here. And so take a look. It's a really fun challenge and some healthy competition amongst our agents. So check it out.
Yeah, and a big piece of it too is to help drive content for those that desire to sign up, but also for you guys to get a little bit of a understanding of the energy of some of your peers as a way to help bridge barriers geographically, depending on who people are and how do you get to know them as a great way to showcase some of our people and our talent. Awesome. Thanks, Linz. All right. With that, I'm jumping into training and education. A handful of things to point out for the group. There's some incredible opportunities forthcoming that I wanted to highlight. First, just yesterday on the Millionaire Real Estate Agent podcast that dropped is Build the Team Agents Never Want to Leave with Chase Delpreng and Jenny Adams. Whether you run a team, desire to run a team, or quite frankly are on a team, I think it's a great way to think about what is it that teams do, how do they offer, and or how do you build and create loyalty, because retention of talent is incredibly vitally important. And I'll challenge the single agent to be thinking about this in this way. You have a team, whether you recognize it or not. The team includes your mortgage lenders, your title people, your basement people, your HVAC people, and all of it is designed around how do you create retention to those that build your team. So I would highlight that and make sure that you guys pay attention as you're listening in the car in and about going about your showings. Highlight for you here, April training calendar is out. There's a handful of things I wanted to call out for the group. First, Jenny will have spring selling secrets all around APHW, which is today at 10:15 in the Lake Country office, all around how do you leverage the home warranty in today's market in order to help you win. PC coaching throughout the month of April is keeping yourself organized, all about condos, command tech, special guests, as well as lead generation workshops in the month of April throughout all locations in our PC coaches. As a reminder, next week, Tuesday in the North Shore office, there's a ladies event, Swap Till You Drop, in terms of swapping spring clothing. And a lot of our female vendors will be participating in this as well, whether it's the ladies from Cream City Mortgage or Focus Title and a variety of other lenders, as a way to bring the ladies together in the spring time. That is next week, Tuesday in the North Shore from 11:30 to 1:30. Also, next week, next week, Wednesday at the 15th, one of the things that we're going to be layering in is a guest speaker series. And follow up on one of the ones that we had last week to this upcoming Wednesday, the 15th at 10 a.m., which will all be via Zoom, is how do you create leads with loyalty? Okay. And here's the premise behind it. If you remember back in February, I shared with you 88% of sellers and 92% of buyers said they valued your services and would likely use you again. The challenge in our industry is roughly about 60% of the time, do they actually use you for the next successive transaction? So the problem becomes is 40% of the people that you actually work with become orphan clients in that 5 to 7 year window from when they actually transact next. And Stacy will be joining us in Milwaukee, or joining us via Zoom, to pour into the group from Milwaukee, all around how do you build loyalty with your leads. So take a look.
Hey Milwaukee, it's Stacy Sauls. I'm out of Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm really excited to talk to you about our class. It's called From Leads to Loyalty. It's basically how we grew a repeat referral business. So we're going to share all of our tricks and insights with you that day. So I can't wait to see you guys there. Bring all your questions for me. I love questions, and I'll see you then.
Love it. So in a day and age when the highest return on value is the relationships and the brand that you've built, how do you maximize that value by building loyalty with your clients? Check it out next week, Wednesday, the 15th at 10 a.m. via Zoom. As I alluded to, then forthcoming on the 22nd, we have Shane Nelson with underwriting, all the things you need to know as it relates to underwriting. May 7th, Lucas Hine will be talking about GPS 411 and AI, turn your business plan into a daily execution. And then May 19th, live in person in Milwaukee, we have a great friend of mine coming in from Salt Lake City, Utah, Marcus Green, who is one of the forefront leaders in the AI space in residential real estate, will help you understand how how do you take from toy to tool to teammate, and how do you utilize AI within your business to create efficiencies in your processes. So check those out on our speaker series forthcoming through the month of May. Next up on the 23rd, up in Minneapolis, if you desire, the Brett Tanner's Be Wealthy workshop will be participating up there. How do you build a $50 million wealth plan? This is in Maple Grove, Minnesota, but we would be remiss if we didn't make sure that you guys knew that this was available to you if you desire to go up there. And then also on Saturday, the 18th of April and Saturday, the 2nd of May, the ever popular client event that you can take advantage of that requires no logistical planning for you. All you have to do is do the pre-marketing in terms of the e-waste drop-off events. If you didn't know, dropping off the old tube TV that's been sitting in your client's basement since the 1980s is actually harder to get rid of than you might realize. And so Camo Crew is doing 2 events with us on the 18th at Prestige and on Saturday, May 2nd in the Southwest Market Center as a way to do e-waste. Great opportunity for you to plug and play to offer a client event or a value add to your clients to help get rid of a variety of tech things and pieces. And then lastly, on May 6th, there is a Brute for Success Real Estate Investing 101 workshop in the Southwest Market Center on May 6th. Arrive at 8:30 with the workshop beginning at 9 and lunch provided. The last time we had this, we had 48 people show up, an incredibly popular understanding of how do you get into the real estate investing space and start building your balance sheets in terms of your investment profile. And then lastly, one last thing in terms of a client event is we have teamed up with the Hunger Task Force as a really simple way for you to bulk up your 36 touch plan around local families in need from a food shelter perspective, leveraging a partnership that we've built with the Hunger Task Force as a way for you to reach out to your clients. And as we talk about enriching our communities, it's a really simple value add. If you're struggling with thinking about how do I touch and add value to my community and database. Now, just shifting slightly, just as a reminder, the Market Center is in your pocket and on the web. Our AI-powered app that we launched last July, I just looked recently, has had 20,000 unique questions, all related to contracts and compliance. But not only that, you have access to everything from marketing resources to pinging a compliance broker to direct questioning to agents or even direct questioning to any of our leadership teams. All of the resources that we have available to you are at your fingertips and available to be downloaded through our AI-powered app. And if you prefer a bigger screen, you have the ability to also download a web applet to your computer to be able to access these questions as well. It's really, really powerful, and our engagement is incredibly I give you guys a ton of credit of embracing this sort of technology to get speed and immediacy to the answers that you are seeking. All right, with that, I'm going to transition into Q1 insights. And as I alluded to earlier, I'm going to zoom out to zoom in, okay? And I'm going to help you with a lot of the questions that I've been hearing and seeing and receiving, help you understand what is going on in the world today and what does it mean to our market. And I'm going to go out to go in, okay? So let's talk about geopolitical conflict, okay? What happens to home appreciation during times of geopolitical conflict? And the answer to it is somewhat unknown. The only way we can look at it is to go back in history to say during the last 2 really major events geopolitically, what has happened to home prices, and just say, well, based on what has happened in the past, here's what I believe to be happening in the future, okay? And I'm going to go back and help you understand that over the long-term appreciation trend of being 4% appreciation, let's look at those points of time and what happened to home pricing during those points of time. So in September of 2001, there was an event in the US that you all are aware of that led to several years of geopolitical conflict globally. And if you look at the successive 5 years, what happened nationally across appreciation rates across the US, you can see that the successive 5 years created appreciation across the US. Now, I'm going to fast forward to February of 2021. February of 2021, there was another major geopolitical conflict that is still ongoing, and it is when Russia invaded Ukraine and The global economy is impacted by all of these moves. And so what you have to understand in 2021, what happened in the successive 5 years as it relates to real estate pricing. Here's the really simplistic boiled down answer. During large times of geopolitical conflict or uncertainty, capital markets tend to typically put money into safe and stable assets. Safe and stable assets are real estate. Okay. And so I share that with you is because I'm sure that you might have clients that might have anxiety in terms of navigating the process right now, knowing that things are going on and what's happening, and how do we help them navigate it. Our job is to come from a place of providing some stability to uncertainty. And the stability to the uncertainty is I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I can only tell you what has happened in the past. And if we look at the last two major events over the last 20 years, here is what happened in the successive 5 years following. The tide continued to rise as it relates to appreciation within our industry. Now, the second most common question I've gotten over the last several weeks as it relates to what's going on geopolitically is what happens with rates. And you guys have felt it probably in January, February, where all of a sudden we were feeling pretty good because rates dipped below 6%. And when rates dipped below 6%, all of a sudden we had a shock in the system. And the shock in the system was we saw a spike over the next 3 weeks. And the question is why? Here's what you have to understand. I believe John touched on this maybe 2 weeks ago when he came on. But you have to understand that mortgage rates are very much tied to oil pricing. Here's why and what you have to understand. In a global economy, we might think that oil is directly correlated to the gas we put in our cars. But oil also built the Patagonia vest I'm wearing. It builds the plastic that you might have drinking your water out of this morning. It touches the plastic that you buy your tomatoes in. And so the challenge becomes, and the reason why mortgage rates are so tied to oil is that when oil spikes, it creates inflationary pressures in all of our lives every single day. You see it most notably at the gas pump, but you will start to see it at the grocery store. You will start to see it on the goods and services and products that you purchase. And the way that the Fed counterbalances inflationary pressures is what? Raise rates. We experienced this in 21, 22, and 23 when rates went from 3% to 6% overnight, and it was directly correlative to the amount of money that was being pumped into the economy post-COVID, and we had to reduce inflationary pressures. So the way they reduce inflationary pressures is raising rates. And so a really simplistic way to get a feel of where you think rates are going is understand where oil prices are, because oil prices create inflationary pressures and deflationary pressures, and it will help you because mortgage rates typically lag oil pricing. You can see here, oil pricing is the light blue line, mortgage rates are the purple line. And so what happens is the spikes in oil go up, the Fed responds accordingly because the oil is such a geopolitical part of all of our economies globally. And so that's where you see when you get the question as to what's going on with rates and why did we see a spike, it's kind of a twofold answer. One, homes become safe and stable assets as it relates to appreciation, yet it does impact rates when oil pricing goes up. Both need to be aware of, and we need to educate our clients as it relates to what's happening to alleviate anxiety and fears. People don't make decisions when they have fear and anxiety around what is happening in the future. Your job is to be the economist of choice to provide that stability and voice in the market. Lastly, on a macro scale, before I go micro into southeastern Wisconsin, I challenged you and made a comment earlier as it relates to divergent markets and being weary of paying attention as to what the national headlines are. Here's an incredibly interesting graph as it relates to listings based on geography across the US. The yellow line is the trend line of the listing inventory in the south and west parts of the United States. Now, if you look in the Northeast and Midwest, you see a very different story. Point being is we have to be the economist of choice for our clients so that The client who might have wintered in Florida and saw a huge spike in listings, bunch of price drops and everything else, doesn't come back in southeastern Wisconsin and believe that the residential real estate market is falling, because we're in totally different markets. The South and the West right now are experiencing vastly different markets than what we are seeing in the Northeast and the upper Midwest. I've shared this with you before, but it bears repeating. A lot of this has to do with three major factors. One, low incidence of natural disasters is creating a reverse migration in the US. We saw migration into the South and West during COVID. People were working remotely. Now, as we've had a lot of high incidence of natural disasters, number two, insurance premiums have spiked. And so the challenge becomes is affordability as it relates to insurance in the South and the West. Okay. The Midwest and the Northeast has a much lower incidence of natural disaster. Insurance premiums have, you know, they're still going up. I'm not going to say that they're not, but they are not going up the way they are in other geographies. And the third that no one is talking about, but they will continuously talk about, I believe, in the next 5 to 10 years, is the high availability of fresh water. And fresh water is fueling the economy. It's no secret that the reason why the data centers are showing up in the Midwest, because of the Great Lakes. Water will continue to be a big part of our macroeconomy moving forward. All right, so let's jump into the micro piece of this. What's going on in southeastern Wisconsin and what does Q1 tell us? Okay, and I'm going to compare this versus 26 versus 23, 24, and 25 so you can see what happened in Q1 and where is the market going. I'll start with total inventory. In Q1 of 2026, we had 9,488 units. That is a 14% increase over Q1 of 23, a 7% increase of 24, and a 2.8% increase versus Q1 of 25. Okay, total inventory, the tide is rising. There's a reason for it, and you'll see here as it relates to how it correlates with new inventory. So total inventory has grown consistently in Q1 market over the past 3 years. As I've stated before, I thought 22 and 23 was the absolute bottom of the market. That is absolutely coming to fruition. And yet inventory still remains tight. And we know this as velocity has remained consistent and demand has remained consistent. We'll get into that more in a second. New inventory units, and as a reminder, this is just the 5-county metro area in southeastern Wisconsin. So this is our hyper-local market where you guys operate. In Q1, there were 6,063 new units that came to the market. It was a 17% increase versus Q1 of 23, almost a 9% increase over Q1 of 24, and a 3% increase versus 25. Okay, new inventory unit has grown consistently in Q1 markets over the past 3 years. The reason being is we're starting to see the rate unlock continue to alleviate new inventory as time and life events continue. Okay, so you hear about the clients, oh, I bought at 2.8%, I bought at 2.7%. Look, there are things that are going to happen in people's lives that are undefeated. It's called death, divorce, job change, having more kids, getting married. Life events are undefeated. Everyone's going to experience life events, and the more the time continuum goes on, the more of these life events will create unlocking opportunities as it relates to the rates that people were sitting on, which is what's driving the new inventory gains that you're seeing. And it also correlative as to what's the total inventory gains. Interestingly to note, I want to point out one thing. There was a huge trend of expired units over the last 2 years, and I kind of beat this with a dead horse. My comment to the group was, you have an opportunity to be number 2 in the market because people have a recency bias and they want instant gratification. And as the challenge became, as days on market continued to creep up, people who thought their neighbor who sold a year ago on Thursday and had an accepted offer by Saturday wasn't the market we were operating in successive years. Yet the recency bias and the instant gratification society is what drove it. Interestingly enough, though, you guys are doing, and the market is telling us, as a professional industry, we are right-sizing seller expectations because we are seeing a slowing of expired inventory, yet days on market are up almost 6 days. You'll see that here in a second. So expired slowed in Q1 compared to prior Q1s. Seller expectations are coming into reality, and yet the risk there as a listing agent, don't get canceled. And yet if you didn't win the listing, there's still an opportunity because our expireds are still relatively high versus where they typically might be at this time of year. Sales absorption, to give you an understanding, sales absorption is the percentage of inventory that goes under contract in a given month, or in this scenario, in a given quarter. In Q1 of 2026, roughly 50% of the total overall industry went under contract in Q1. Okay, that's a very, very healthy indication of demand. The reason we look at sales absorption is this is the first metric that would show us if demand was softening. That isn't necessarily the case in Q1 of 2026. So demand was a tad stagnant in Q1 of 23 and 24, but it increased in Q1 of 26, which is a positive sign and likely correlative to the rate decreases in the environment that we operated in, what we saw in January and February. Average days on market, as I alluded to, average days on market in Q1 was 41 days. That's up roughly over a week versus what we experienced in 23, up 2 days versus what we experienced in 24, and up another 4 days of what we experienced versus last year. So think about this. Versus last year in Q1, the average listing sat 4 more days longer than it did the year prior. Okay. Now, the reason why that's not as concerning is twofold. One, expireds didn't jump because seller expectations were right-sized. And two, we didn't see a drop in the sales absorption rate, which would tell us the demand piece. What happened was sellers right-sized expectations of how long it should take and what the price it should go for. That's a good news for all of us. Okay. Days on market is a velocity metric. Metrics are increasing versus prior years, yet are healthy increases. The velocity rates in which we operated in, and for those that were in the market in 20, 21, 22, 23, were not sustainable. Like it just was not a sustainable velocity metric. And we know this to be true as new inventory and units going under contract are effectively equal. Units going under contract in Q1, there was 4,680. It was up 11% versus 23, up 3% versus 24, and up 4% versus 25. Okay. So Q1 of this year versus Q1 of last year, units that went under contract was up 4%. Again, that's a really positive sign as it relates to the confidence metric of what consumers view. So units went under contract grew in correlation with new unit inventory in Q1 of 26. Rate environment softened in Q1 and it increased units showing demand is still very healthy in southeastern Wisconsin. And so I showed with you and I pulled back in the new unit inventory to say, look, new unit inventory was up 3%. Units that went under contract was up 4%. It's highly correlative. New inventory comes on and the demand remains relatively healthy and strong. Those units, as they come on the market, are going to come off the market. Okay. Now, all of that has an impact on pricing. So if new inventory is coming to the market and it is as fast as it's coming on the market is effectively coming off the market, where do you think pricing should go, or it would have gone in Q1? Would have gone up. So let's take a look. Q1 of this year versus Q1 of last year, pricing was up on average 6% and the median up 5.8%. Now, when you compare this over the last 2 years, just look going back into Q1 of 23 and the average up 21% and the median up 24%. Now, this is the opportunity to go back to those clients from an educational piece to add value to say, you thought you were buying in the top of the market. You were buying in the top of the moment. Okay. Why? Because housing continued to appreciate. And when we look at it on a bit more of a static metric, when we look at price per square foot, you can see price per square foot Q1 of this year versus Q1 of last year was up 5%. And if you go back to 23, it was up almost 29%. Again, what does this tell us? 3 things. New inventory units increased in Q1. That's good. Demand also remained strong and healthy. That's good. And when you pair those 2 things together, supply plus demand, what does it create? It creates appreciation. So in terms of our ability to communicate with our clients, the importance here is helping our clients understand we're operating in southeastern Wisconsin in a very healthy market, driven first by demand. Sellers are getting what they desire out of it. Right-size expectations that it's taking a little longer, but it's not impacting pricing. Make sense? That's the most simplistic way I can put it for the group. So we continue to see appreciation gains in southeastern Wisconsin, and it shows that those concerned buying at the peak in 22 and 23 wasn't necessarily the case. Great value add in terms of your communication. Cool? All right, I want to touch on something real quick as I shift gears. And Mandy very eloquently gave you guys an industry update as it relates to Zillow Preview and what's going on in what I call the portal wars. Look, here's the truth. We'll help you navigate it. We're going to help you take advantage of it. Okay. I want to highlight two things that she brought forth in her presentation that she shared with you, I think about 2 weeks ago. The portal wars is an interesting war. We are pawns in the war. I just want to be very clear. Yet we are the ones who control the inventory. So it's interesting how that works. This is something so outside of our control. And yet at the same time, we control the relationship with the seller, which I think is a really interesting dynamic in all of this. Point being is this. We're going to help you take advantage of it. Your job is to make sure that you educate your clients on the best possible option for them. Okay. The preview listings and the purpose behind it is, quite frankly, what we've been asking our MLS to do for quite some time, which is why don't we syndicate what in our market we call delayed listings? Why aren't we syndicating delayed listings to the portal? For, I don't know, a variety of reasons, the MLS has chosen not to do that. And so what happens? Market forces come at play. A lot of people are fighting and angling with the MLS system macroly. Okay. And so the portals, the companies, and the MLSs, there's this triangle of a tug of war going on. We're squarely in the middle of it because we control the relationship to the inventory, and they want access to the data in order for them to create value. Okay. Here's my point to it. One, you're well positioned to do this for 3 reasons. Okay. Zillow, it's interesting how they've kind of turned a heel all of a sudden as it relates to the concept of your listing, your lead. In the Zillow preview model, or coming soon, or AKA syndicating of delayed listings, the listing agent will be prominently displayed, and there will be a window in which you'll be able to take advantage of your listing, your lead. Okay. Mandy went through the dynamics and the functionality behind it, and I know that we sent a follow-up email as it relates to all the details to this, but I'm just highlighting and regrounding us as to the importance as to why the portal wars are happening and how do we take advantage of it in the market at the moment. 2, the other most important thing as it relates to it is it really will allow you to test price without being impacted as it relates to the statistics of how you operate your business. What does this mean? Days on market and price history will not be aggregated during the delayed, AKA coming soon, AKA preview window. Does that make sense? That is, I think, maybe an understated understanding as to why this is important to me as the agent, okay, is the aggregation of days on market and price history will not be aggregated during these windows. Now, in a successive team meeting, I'll talk about, and I alluded to this, why your number one job as a listing agent is to create babies, okay? It sounds funky, but the truth is every listing you take should create 2 pieces of business. The way you strategically go about creating babies is important to generate organic future business for your business. Okay. I'll take a deep dive into that here, likely next week or the week after. But you have to understand that this is now a tool in your tool chest to create babies. Okay. And organically creating new opportunities for business. So we're not in a simple MLS-driven market. We're in a multi-channel competitive ecosystem. Your job is to understand the options, educate your sellers, and strategically choose how each listing goes to market. Now, the third piece that I said of why this is important and impacts you is this. I pulled the productivity report by brokerage so far in Q1 of 2026. Economies of scale are important because those that control the listing are the market makers in the market in which you operate in. So I thought it would be a very appropriate and opportune time to help you understand the economies of scale of the community that you're operating in. And so far through Q1, our market share has risen substantially in Q1. All of this benefits you as the listing agent as it relates to the impacts it has on the portal wars. Because unless you have scale within your market, scale is your friend in the portal war game. And the market makers, aka those that have scale, are the ones that will be able to take advantage of this opportunity as a listing agent through this partnership in a way that others won't, because of scale. Scale is your friend. So I share this with you, not as much to say, look at us and this is what we're doing. It's more so to say that piece of the value that we have to think about strategically is, as a company, why growth is continuously important, because scale in the game where we are a pawn of something I don't have control over. The one thing I do have control over is what is our listing scale and what is our trend within our listing scale and how do we drive it? Because all of it impacts your ability to do your job. And how do we then create market makers as it relates to, I've been very public about my position within the MLS. Well, that doesn't happen if I'm 2% of the market. It does happen if it's 16% of the market. Okay. The other one that I'll share with you, because this helps, I know a lot of people that are looking to elevate their price point. And how do you leverage, if you're elevating your price point and not just wanting to leverage your network, you leverage your community. And so through Q1 of 2021, one of every 3 luxury homes in southeastern Wisconsin over $1 million was sold by a KW community member. Again, I share this with you not because it's luxury, luxury, luxury. It's an excellent story as an agent. If I'm sitting here thinking, how do I take advantage of my community in order to raise my average price point, be in the community that is doing the deals, right? Last week, I helped an agent who landed a huge listing. We went deep into their data and their statistics, and we basically told the story that you're not only getting me, you're getting this community that is effectively doing all of the business, and why economies of scale is your friend as a client, okay? The other interesting thing is we sell 3x more luxury homes than the number 2 brand. And I was petty and I did calculate it. You'd have to add 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 up to get to where we were through Q1 of 2026. But that's just me being hyperly competitive. Sorry. And there's our trend line. And I've shared with you, I like graphs that start in the lower left and go to the upper right. So I share this with you. It was a lot of data, a lot of information. Because you have to understand that your competence to this information is what will create stability for your clients. And when your clients have stability, they will take action. And so I will leave you with this thought of a conversation between Mel Robbins and Jay Shetty.
The problem with the word confidence, when I look it up in the dictionary, it's one of my favorite definitions of a word. One of the definitions is acknowledgement and self-assurance in one's own abilities. Mm-hmm. Right? Like you're acknowledging and you are aware of and you're reassured of your own abilities and your qualities. And so when I look at that definition, I go, okay, that requires you to do things that, like you don't build your self-respect when you sat out on the beach. But you do build your self-respect when you went and hiked up a hill and then walked back down, right? Like your self-confidence doesn't grow because you sat out in your garden and didn't do anything. Your self-confidence grew because you learned how to garden or do something, right? Your self-respect, self-esteem, and self-confidence grow when you do things that are not obvious or easy or simple.
Right.
But like you're saying, we're not trained in that way. So what are some of the steps that people could take towards self-confidence?
Yeah. First, here's what I want to tell you, and then I'll give you some steps. So confidence is one of those topics, Jay, that we have backwards. Everybody hears the word confidence and they think it's belief, like up here.
Yeah, I agree.
Confidence, my definition of confidence that I want everyone to walk away with is confidence is the willingness to try. In research, there is something called the Confidence-Competency Loop. And what that means is that as you try something for the first time, like I was curling my hair this morning and I freaking burned my ear. And my daughter casually says, gotta learn somehow. By trying, and by the way, screwing it up and burning my ear, I still am gaining a little bit of competence. I know to hold this thing a little bit further away from my ear now. By gaining competence by burning my ear, I now am gonna try again, and I'm gonna be a little bit better. And I'm gonna gain a little bit more competence, and then I'm gonna try again, and I'm gonna learn even more. And so confidence, at the heart of confidence is action. It's the willingness to try. And all you need is to know that if you try, you're not gonna die. You're just gonna learn something. And when you learn something, it removes a little bit of the insecurity so that it makes it slightly easier to try again. And so I would follow the 60% rule, okay?
So there's my concept for you this morning. I give you a lot of data and a lot of things to think about. The confidence in which you articulate this to your clients starts with competence and understanding it. And understanding it takes trying and action. And as you try to understand what is going on, you will be able to articulate it with confidence. And when you have that confidence, you will create stability for your clients to take action. Cool. All of this data will be posted on our website. It will be available for you to ping on the AI app. And if you need any help, we're here to serve you and help you guys win. It's a beautiful day in Milwaukee, guys. Thanks for showing up.